In 869, African slaves built a capital city, minted their own coins, and nearly destroyed the most powerful empire on earth. You never learned this in school, there's a reason. The Zanj Rebellion lasted 14 years and killed over 500,000 people. They buried the story. And the reason why is darker than the war itself. The Abbasid Caliphate. You heard it called the Golden Age of Islam. Baghdad, 800 CE. Algebra, astronomy. Libraries that made Europe look primitive. That's the version they sold you. What they never mentioned is what was underneath it, literally. In the marshlands south of Basra in what is now southern Iraq, hundreds of thousands of East African slaves called the Zanj labored in conditions the textbooks skipped entirely. They drained salt flats by hand in suffocating heat, fed barely enough to function, worked until they broke, and they were watched. They were always watched, until the day they weren't. In September of 869, a man named Ali ibn Muhammad walked into those marshes. He told the Zanj he was descended from Ali ibn Abi Talib, cousin of the Prophet himself. Whether that was true doesn't matter. What he said next does. He told them God had commanded their freedom. Within weeks, thousands joined him. Within months, hundreds of thousands. And they weren't just revolting. They were building. The rebels founded their own capital, Al-Muqtara, the chosen one. They minted coins. They ran courts. In 871, they sacked Basra, then one of the largest cities in the world. The massacre lasted days. Bodies blocked the canals. Arab chroniclers writing for the Abbasid court, people with every reason to minimize it, estimated 30,000 dead in a single week. This wasn't a rebellion. This was a counter-empire, and they were winning. For 14 years, the Zanj held territory. The most powerful Islamic state on earth could not stop them. Caliph al-Mu'tamid sent army after army into the marshes. They kept losing. The rebels destroyed Abbasid fleets, repelled siege after siege, recruited defectors, including free Arab soldiers who crossed to the Zanj side. At one point, the rebels controlled more land than some European kingdoms. The Golden Age was bleeding out. When the Abbasids finally crushed the rebellion in 883, it had taken 14 years and the full military weight of an empire. They paraded Ali ibn Muhammad's severed head through the streets of Baghdad, and then they started forgetting. But here's what doesn't add up. The Zanj Rebellion is not hard to find. Arab historians documented it in exhaustive detail. Al-Tabari wrote about it. Ibn Khaldun wrote about it. The evidence was never destroyed. This wasn't erasure by fire. It was erasure by omission, quieter, more deliberate, and more complete. Every global curriculum teaches the Atlantic slave trade. It dominates the conversation, and it should. But the Arab slave trade moved Africans for just as many centuries in comparable numbers. Some historians say more. The Zanj weren't an exception. They were one wave in a system running at full capacity inside the civilization your textbooks told you to admire most. Here is what they never told you. The Golden Age requires a clean story. Algebra, astronomy, the preservation of Greek knowledge. Those things are real, but they exist alongside a slave economy of staggering scale. The Zanj weren't background detail. They were the foundation. The salt flats they worked fed the cities that built the libraries. The wealth extracted from their labor funded the courts and the scholars. You cannot tell the story of the Islamic Golden Age honestly without telling the story of the Zanj. And so a choice was made, not in one room but gradually, across decades of curriculum committees deciding what gets a chapter and what gets compressed into a line nobody reads. This isn't a conspiracy. It's something quieter and in some ways worse. It's consensus, an agreed-upon silence. Because admitting the Zanj Rebellion at full volume means admitting that the civilization your teachers held up as proof the medieval world had light in it was, for hundreds of thousands of people at its very foundation, exactly that dark. The rebellion lasted 14 years because the suffering that caused it lasted generations. Think about what that means for every golden age they taught you. Every empire gets cleaned up for the classroom. The details that complicate the story get quietly removed. Not burned, not banned, just never mentioned. The Zanj built a city, they minted coins, they held an empire at bay for 14 years. That is one of the most extraordinary stories in recorded history, and you had never heard their name until right now. Every time a civilization gets reduced to its achievements, its art, its science, its architecture, ask what was underneath it. Who was paying the actual price? Because the pattern holds. It held in Rome. It held in Greece. It held in the Abbasid Caliphate. And it holds closer to home than you want to believe. The Arab slave trade didn't end with the Zanj Rebellion. It continued for centuries after. So here's the question your history class never asked. If a war this large, this documented, this close to succeeding, can disappear this completely, what else didn't make it into the textbook?